So welcome back to another episode. And I don't know what kind of episode this is going to end up becoming, because I'm going to talk about some of the worst times in my life. Some of the worst things that I've experienced in my life. And let me just say to begin with here, this is not a reflection of anybody else out there that's experienced all the terrible things in their lives, because I know a lot of people have experienced some really horrendous things in their lives, and I definitely sympathize with that. And I want to say that my experiences in my life are just mine. That's it. And I can't, this is not a competition to anybody else's life that they've had worse times or I've had worse times. It's not about that. I just wanted to come in and share some of these things today. And if anybody can gain anything from any of this, that would be a wonderful thing. And I think there is a message here at the end of it that we endure a lot in our lives, but we keep on going. And it's really, life can throw a lot at you. And you never know what's coming. You never know what's coming. Everything can be a smooth ride, and then it just gets turned upside down and it can become the worst of the worst. And I'm just going to talk about some moments in my life that have affected me. And I'm going to start off from the very beginnings of my life, of what I remember and stuff like that. And some of them may seem like a little small, and some of them are really big. And some of them I have talked about on the channel before, but a few of them I've never talked about before. So strap in, this is a heck of a video. I've been thinking about doing this video for months, and I sat down, I'm like, I think today is the day. And I just want to say that I was very lucky growing up. I had a really good childhood, nothing unusual, nothing weird, happened. Great parents, my parents are always happy. I'm very lucky that way, I'm the first to admit it. And then what's interesting is you're in elementary school and everything's kind of okay. And then it was 1988 for me. I'm that much older than you guys, for a lot of you out there. I was going into high school, and it's like, like all those TV movies about a kid goes into high school and it's just like, oh my God, what's going on? That's kind of what happened to me. Because when you go into high school, you're the smallest kid and you're wearing terrible clothes that your parents bought for you, and it's like, oh my God, I have horrible hair. Before, I used to have hair that was out to here. Honestly, it was ridiculous. I blame my parents for that one. I asked for haircuts, but my mom would cut it herself, and I would get whatever I was going to get. So I entered high school not being kind of the person that I want to be, and not knowing who I wanted to be. And oh my God, back in the 80s, it was a lot. I know bullying happens now, but as soon as I walked through the doors, I remember when I think what a bunch of fucking wimps these people were. I remember this guy, huge guy, by the way, he's like a football player, grabbing me with all of his friends and all these girls, pushing me against the locker, going, haha, look at this guy, yeah, he's new to the school, and everybody laughing, and I was like up there going, haha, yeah, this is great. This is my life off to a great start in high school. And there's the fear of going into high school every day, and I wasn't bullied, per se. Like, Rob was bullied when he went to school, really badly, but I wasn't. But grade 8 was a very challenging year, and so a lot of these stories, I'm going to try to relate them to video games at the time to also give them that flair as well, that I escaped into video games big time, and it was my escape. I dreaded school. I hated going to high school in grade 8. I hated it. Every day I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. It was such a weird, unusual place. There was so many cliques and there was so much stuff going on. I hated it. Anyways, video games were my escape, and I would go home every day and I'd play video games, and it was just such a wonderful, wonderful place to go. And that's why I love video games so much. I think it was because of that time really cemented them as almost like a medication for me. It was like a place I could escape into, because I didn't drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, do pot or anything, at that time. I didn't do anything like that. So I was a pretty straight edge kid, and I remember only getting like 2 or 3 hours sleep on a night. I just didn't want to go to sleep to get up to go to school. And video games were my out. They were my escape, and I loved them so very much. And then anyways, I'm not going to get into it, but I went into grade 9, and I got into skateboarding, and I kind of flipped the switches of who I was going to be. And it's good or bad or debatable in time, but I got into with a very bad group of people, but it was very important for my growth as a person. I learned so much about the world and myself, and I, started dating girls, and it just opened up a whole different world. And yeah, I started drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes and, getting into the world of drugs and all of that, and that's debatable. But it's what I did at that time. But I would never be that kid I was in grade 8 again. And I just remember grade 8 being a very difficult year and a very challenging year. And then, to be absolutely honest, getting into grade 9 and becoming this other person, that was very difficult as well. So that is the beginning, and that's just a small thing to start with. And so life continued on and was very, very good. I must admit, things were great. And then, I've talked about this on the channel before, I got to 22 years old, and my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And that was the toughest thing in the world. I mean, because my dad woke up one day, his back was aching, and we took my mom and sister took him to the hospital, and then 2 weeks later, he died of lung cancer. It was that immediate. And in retrospect, I am glad, I know that sounds weird to say, I'm glad it was so fast. Because I think I've talked to a lot of people that had parents that have been ill for a very long time, and you just want them to be at rest. And so my dad didn't have a lot of time to suffer. And we have had a lot of time to suffer since to deal with the aftermath of that. And for a 22-year-old kid, and I know people who have lost their parents at a much younger age, friends of mine, that's equally as traumatic. It's traumatic whenever you lose a parent, but it's really hard in a younger person when you lose them at that age. And it was tough for me because I was starting to bond with my father, and he's not just my dad at that point. We were bonding as human beings and people, and that was very difficult. It was difficult, especially for my mom, and it's definitely for my sister and for me. And the effects, I mean, I still never gotten over it. I've come to terms with it, but it's just one of those things that's such a tragedy and all of that. And especially the older you get in life, you think, like, I would have loved for my father to meet Kim, my wife, and for Kim to meet my dad. But that's something that you kind of wish on as you get older and all that kind of stuff. And that threw me into a very weird place. And I mean, it took me a couple of years to get out of the dark place I was with dealing with it. That was really excessively hard. But what happened just after my dad died is, this was so fucking crazy at this time, is that my mom, her mom died just like a few months afterwards. Not even that long. So it was like my dad died, my grandmother died, and then the only comfort me and my family had, I know this sounds weird, was we had our little dog that we had. It was very comforting for my mom after my dad died. It was like some comfort for her. And then the dog died. He got run over on the freaking highway. I mean, it was like just so many things at once. And I was just in film school, at that point, trying to get out of that. And it was just like, there was so much I was dealing with. It was like crazy. But you know what? That's the sad thing is, this is the real world. That you have to deal with tragedy, and you have to, as hard as it is, you have to kind of deal with it and roll with the punches and all of that stuff. And as I've often said, I'm relating it back to video games, like Final Fantasy VII, the music for that haunts me. That music haunts me because it always reminds me of that time of my father passing away. So I always, as much as I'm looking forward to like the Final Fantasy remake, I'm also kind of, it's going to be tough to go back and revisit it. I've never been able to go back and play Final Fantasy VII. I did a little bit with Kim a few years ago, but it's one of the games I would love to play again, but one of the ones I'm kind of fearful of. It just to bring back some jarring memories. That music, I can listen to it, but man, is it difficult. So I try to avoid it if possible, and all of that. That was really hard. And then the next thing that ended up happening was I graduated film school, and I got this job at this. I got a job at a couple of animation studios and worked in TV commercials for a while, stuff like that. But then I got a job at a software company, and this was like a dream job. It was a software company that was out way before Google. We're talking like in the year 1999, 2000, and we would draw maps of a city and you put advertising on the maps and whatever, and so you could find out if you landed in a city where all the restaurants were. This is like before Google Maps. So we were on the forefront of that. It was kind of a thing. But I didn't realize this is during the .com phase. It was a big stock scam. They were just making this company up to look like it was something on paper, and I didn't realize I was right in the middle of it. So I got a bunch of stock money out of it in the end, but I also lost my job in the end unexpectedly. And that was a huge blow to me. And that was a very, very difficult time. Oh my God, I'll never forget losing my job, and it was like winter time. It was really dark out, and I thought, what the hell am I going to do? Because it's hard to get a job, and it's hard to find out the next thing you're going to do in your life, especially when I was a younger person. I committed all of my mental energy into this job. I given everything I had. I did such amazing work there that it's nearly 20 years later, and I can't believe the work that I did there. I drew these maps that were unbelievable. Like, we would take helicopters over the city, film everything, and then I'd come back and draw it to scale. And then I'd draw it in Flash and color it. Did all of it. Drew the whole map. It was unreal. Very committed. You know, when you're younger, you have a lot of energy, and I committed it completely to this company. That's for sure. But I remember Devil May Cry 1 was coming out, and I picked it up on the way home, and I'd lost my job, and I came home. And I remember, this is like a funny thing for Devil May Cry, playing Devil May Cry 1, and just like the eeriness of the music and all of that. It's like, it's almost, whenever I listen to when it says Devil May Cry, and it's kind of like this echoey thing, that always reminds me when I came home that night and I lost my job, and that was haunting me. I don't know. I was haunted by losing my job, but the game also haunted me as well because it was so gothic and creepy and all of that, and it had the music and all that had that effect on me. It kind of was like a double down and made everything twice as bad. It was awesome, but the game was great. The game was great, but that was a difficult time. So yeah, I'd lost my job, and that was a difficult thing. And then one of the next things that happened, and I've never talked about this on the show. Me and Rob have alluded to it, but I've never talked about it. And I think it's time that I mention it because it's interesting. Me and Rob had a major fallout, and it wasn't because we hated each other. It wasn't because of anything bad. Realistically, it was one of those sets of circumstances of things that went weird. And I was such a, I could be a very stubborn person. I'm a very stubborn person. If something rubs me the wrong way, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I'm very stupid that way. And it's one of my faults, and it's something I've worked on getting better at, but I'm still very much like that. If somebody rubs me the wrong way or pisses me off in the real world, I'm done. I'm like, I am done. I'm just that kind of person. So what ended up happening is that Phantasy Star Online version 2 was coming out, in the Japanese version, and I loved the game so much that Rob's brother at the time was living in Japan, and I was like, oh, Rob, do you think this is before Play Asia and all those things existed the same way it does now? Now I can just go on a website and order the game. But back then it was a little bit more harder to track a Japanese game down. Japan was still this mysterious country and hard to get things from, per se. So I said, hey, Rob, could your brother get me Phantasy Star Online? And I pay him the money. And he's like, oh, yeah. So he's like, oh, yeah, Gord's going to send you the game and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's fantastic. This is so dumb when I look back. This is such a situation that was so stupid. And me and Rob didn't talk for 4 years because of this. This is so silly. And yeah, anyways, it has a good ending to it as well. But so Rob was like my best friend. And so to have a fallout with him, and I'm going to get to what it is, it was unfathomable. I couldn't imagine it. Couldn't imagine it. We spent every day together. Every single day together, and something so dumb was about to tear us apart, and it did. And so, what ended up happening is, I think Rob said, "Hey, can you pay my brother?" I said, "Yeah." And what happened is, I just got into a car accident. I had to replace the tires or something on my car, and I said, "Yeah, I'm getting my next paycheck, and I'll pay him." It was only $100. It's even over $100. It was nothing. And so Rob was like, "Okay, cool, I'll tell him." And so I don't think Rob communicated it properly or something like that. So all of a sudden, Rob was over one day with my friend Satan, and I even think my mom was over at my place at the time. And the phone rings, and I answered it. And I'm not saying anything, but it was Rob's mom was really mad at me that I hadn't paid her son back. And I was just so blown. I said, yeah, I'm definitely paying it back. I said, I'm actually getting the money this week, type of thing, blah, blah, blah. She's like, well, he put it on his credit card, and the interest is adding up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pay. And she's like, and she was really mad at me. And from that, I put the phone down, and I was mad at Rob. Because Rob's sitting in the room. I said, why is your mom phoning me up? I told you I was going to pay. He said, oh, I don't know. She overreacted. And she overreacted, for sure. But I got so mad at the situation that I paid Rob's his money back, his brother's money. Here you go. Done. And I kind of I was mad at Rob that Rob didn't get in the way of it all, like, or try to, like, deflect it. This is something from nearly 19 years ago, folks, as well. And I blamed him for that, and I think I put too much blame on him. It was his mum that overreacted, and it was over such a small thing. It was over $100 game that I was just, like, 2 weeks late paying on. That was it. That got, like, went like a different direction. And I think, here's the thing, I think we all overreacted. I think Rob's mum did. I think Rob should have stepped in more. And I think I shouldn't have been so stubborn, because what I did next was the dumbest thing ever. I just stopped talking to Rob. I just stopped talking to him. And I just wrote him off. I was so mad about the whole situation. I was stubborn, and I was stupid, and I was dumb about the whole thing. In looking back, and it was very, and to hold on to that kind of negativity takes away from a person. It really was hard to be so committed to not talking to him again. And that was difficult. And then I think Rob became bitter at me that I wasn't talking to him, so he starts hating me, I start hating him. We never talked again. Until, and the GameCube launched, so much stuff happened. We didn't talk during all of that time, which is amazing. And we both lived in the same little city here. And go figure, this is how we met up again. And so this story has a bright side to it. It's kind of funny. I was sitting in my car outside a liquor store. I don't know what it was. I'd gone and I got some beer, had in the car. And it was such a nice day that I had the window down. This is when I was a smoker, as I said. And I'm just smoking out the window. And I look, and there Rob is coming out of the liquor store. And he's got like a six-pack. And he's got his wife in the other car. But he sees me. And I was so relaxed. I wasn't uppity. I wasn't like, oh my God, it's him. I don't want to see him. I was like, he just walked towards me, came in the car, and he's like, hey man, how you doing? And I said, good. I said, how you doing? And then we started talking again. And then I got out of the car, and we had a long chat. And we went for coffee with our friend Satan. His name's Aaron. His nickname was Satan. And we made a pact that we would never have a falling out again the same way, and type of thing. And we never have, not the same way. I mean, like, the thing is in a friendship, as much as even any relationship, there's ups and downs and all that, but we always work it out. That is the testament of our friendship. And you have this with friends at times, and especially friends that you're so close to, who you see so much. You can have these kinds of falling outs, and it's one of those ones I regret the most of all my time and stuff like that. That's the dumbest thing in the world. But you know what? We worked it out, and we're still here today. We're still good friends today, and that makes it all worthwhile. And there's been a lot of other things, as we all have in our lives, you know, ups and downs, goods and bads, evils and things that we see. I've seen things in my life that are just horrendous at times. I've seen, one day, I plan to write a book. That's a little secret of mine. Because I have stories of things that I've experienced and things I've seen that will blow your mind. That I don't think I'd ever talk about on the show, because they're so crazy. I mean, I've seen horrible things. I mean, you're probably like wondering what. Put it this way, one night I'll say this last story and I'm out. I was around my neighborhood. This is when I was 17 years old. And I was on some like drugs at the time, like pot and stuff like that, and nothing harsh. I never did any hard drugs at all. But I was not in my right state of mind, and there was another group of like skateboarders. There was our group. We were actually good skateboarders. We could skateboard. Where these other group of skateboarders from another school, they looked the part, but they couldn't skateboard with shit. But they lived the lifestyle back then of the really hardcore punk, twisted skateboarder guys. They were our group was bad, but this group was evil. And I remember walking around, and this is in like the very early 90s, very early, probably like 91-ish, 92-ish time, somewhere in there. And I remember walking around the corner, and there was this guy. I'm not even going to say his name because he's still around. I don't have this video to ever get out. And these people scared me, and I don't say that lightly. These people were horrible. They're the kind of people that, and they did this. They would back then order pizza to somebody's house, and then they'd rob the driver when he came over with the pizza and stole all his money. They assaulted him. This is in a very different time. People didn't report things. You were scared to report things. You were scared. I was a younger guy, and I remember walking around and I saw this guy pick up this cat, black cat, and I wasn't hallucinating. This happened, and he broke its neck and threw it down, and he just stared at me, and I was just like, I just remember all the blood in my body draining, all the blood from my face draining, and I just wanted to die. And it was the worst thing I still to this day I think I've ever seen. And I just walked away. It was so horrendous. I never even told, I've only told a few people about it. Because I don't even know, nobody in the neighborhood was missing a cat. And that group of people were so scary. The things they did. I have stories within stories. And that story still haunts me to this day. And people will say, well, why didn't you say something to the police and all that? It was just a different time. In the 90s, you didn't want to. If you reported him to the police, I was the only person who saw that. His group would have come after me in a way that would have been horrendous. Like, they were scary. They would have come and, like, attacked my parents. They would have attacked my girlfriend at the time. They would have done damage. Yeah, they were a bad group of people. I've got stories, man. I got stories within stories. It's funny for anybody who's new to the channel, and anybody who's even been around for a while. I don't really think everybody knows a lot about me and what I've seen. I mean, I don't talk about all of this stuff. All of my friends I've seen on drugs and alcoholics and in some terrible ways over the years, and having to take them to drug places and drug rehabilitation and nearly losing friends and losing friends. We've had friends of ours that have died in the last bunch of years, had heart attacks in their basements from drinking, smoking, and doing too much methadone. It's unbelievable. And still going on now. I've lost so many of my friends. I had a group of friends that just went all into heroin. I've talked a little bit about it. So I just want to come in and talk about all this. And, if anybody can get anything from this video in a positive way, then that's great. And the only thing you can do in the end of the day is keep moving forward, keep your head up straight, surround yourself with good people in life, and try to see the positive in life. Do you see why I have a show on positivity? And why I try to preach positivity is because this is the thing we have to go towards in the end of the day. We have to be positive. We have to look for the positive because the alternative is not good. And we have to keep ourselves in there. If you're not feeling that way, if anybody's dealing with anything, talk to people, surround yourselves. When my father died, I surrounded myself with my friends, and it was a comfort to me, and it helped. but there was many times I was alone. And the next day when I was feeling terrible, I just surrounded myself with my friends and, you know, did things like played video games and went out and did whatever, just to try to make myself feel better. And that relates to all of these things. And anyways, I'm going off on a rant now. That was a very highly emotional journey for me to go on there. Losing parents, losing friends, losing dogs, losing, you know, grandparents, bullying in school, losing jobs. I mean, life can be tough, but you gotta look for the positive, and that's the only thing that you can do in the end. You have to try and all of that. And anyways, I'm out of here. Anyways, guys, till next time.